Are there any specific stories that stand out to you?
Yeah, the thing that stands out the most for me is when I was in grammar school. I came to Santa Monica, California when I was in the 4th grade, and they had religious education at the school. And I believe it was once a week. The Catholics would get up and go to their religious education, and the Christians, I think there was more than one denomination, would get up and go to their religious education, and I was one of maybe 4 children left alone in the classroom because I was Jewish, and there was no Jewish religious education. And at that age, I felt very lonely and left out. To have everybody being together sharing something that I wasn't allowed to share. And it hurt me. It really, really hurt me. Another thing that I remember is a little girl in my class telling me that I was going to go to hell because I did not believe as she believed. And it really scared me. And I remember going home and, telling my parents. I don't remember what they said, but they did comfort me. But that someone would say something like that to a 4th grader who is so impressionable,
Yeah.
that was really hurtful. I heard about, but it seems to me that it did happen to me in that same school, that someone told me that his parents told him that either I had a tail. It must have been a tail because you could see I didn't have horns, but that he was told that because I was Jewish that I had a tail. So. But as an adult, I feel sad about that little boy being taught hate and prejudice. That's how it affects me now today. That was, I'll be 70 in October. That was 60 years ago. And I think and I hope that those kinds of prejudices and beliefs no longer exist, but to think that they existed in my lifetime. And another thing that when I was in school during the Christmas season, I was told that I was not allowed to sing Christmas carols because it was not our belief. But they didn't observe Hanukkah back in those days, so it was another thing that I was being left out of. I just had a thought about it. But I'm fast forwarding because I also remember as a child hearing my father talk about having been turned down for jobs because he was Jewish. In those days, it was legal to ask somebody what religion they were. Or our maiden name was Brusky. Brusky, what kind of name is that? And what they really were wanting to know is, are you Jewish? Another thing that really raises the hackles on the back of my neck, and it's been done in front of me, is to hear someone use the expression, I Jewed him down. Even saying it, it's just like my stomach goes in a knot. And it reminds me, that phrase reminds me of the pictures that the Nazis put out of the big fat Jews with the big noses carrying bags of money. And the belief that Jews are stingy when, in fact, at the head of every charity and every movement toward human rights, there are Jewish names. So I met a man in my 30s, and we had a relationship for several years. And his parents were Holocaust deniers. His parents believed that the Holocaust was made up and that it never happened. And even now, to think of anyone, after I've met the people, you know, with the numbers on their arms, and I've been to the Holocaust museums here and in Israel, that anybody could believe that that kind of horror and the pictures that came out and the eyewitness accounts were made up. That is the smallest type of narrow-mindedness and prejudice that I can even imagine. And then there was something that happened recently, just in this past several months, where I was in a store and a man approached me and asked me to look at a pamphlet. And I knew the minute I saw the pamphlet what it was. It had a Jewish star and a cross. And I said, if you're wanting me to read about Jews for Jesus, I'm not interested. I'm Jewish, and I'm happy to be Jewish. And he said, no, that's not what it is. And so I said, okay, well, let me see the pamphlet. I looked at the pamphlet, and that was exactly what it was. And I gave it back to him, and I said, I told you I didn't want to read it. And he started screaming at me that I was going to hell. I mean, screaming at me in the store until, I mean, I had to get a manager to get him. He followed me, screaming at me that I was going to go to hell. And I had to get a manager, and they had to have a security guard escort him out of the store. One of the questions you asked me, Jared, is how I believe we can foster greater familiarity and comfort with people of different beliefs. I belong to a synagogue that meets in a church. My synagogue is called Ahavat Torah Congregation, and we meet in the Village Lutheran Church. And we hang our Jewish stars on the across the windows, and we have our ark with the Torah, and we are there on Saturday mornings. On Saturday night, there's an Islamic group, there's a Muslim group that meets at the same church to pray. And on Sunday morning, Reverend Janet, who is the minister of the Village Lutheran Church, leads her Christian service. And we have an interfaith community. We do events together. When it's a Jewish holiday, we invite the Muslims and the Christians to come and learn about our traditions and eat our food, which is always very plentiful and very good. And the three women who lead our interfaith community, Reverend Janet, Rabbi Miriam, and Karima, actually this past year went to Australia to speak to the World Council of Churches, I believe it was, on how we've created interfaith community. That's my heart, and that's how I would like to see everyone live, because when you know someone, you don't feel as frightened of them.
You think a key would be, rather than building walls between each other's, being in community with each other? Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's fascinating how we learn from each other, and how these are the three Abrahamic religions, and there's a lot of similarity. I can't say there's more similarities than differences, but there because I don't know it that well, but there are a lot of similarities. And my rabbi just came back from Bosnia, where she was invited by the Minister of Education. Bosnia is a Muslim country, to address the principals of schools on what Judaism is. And she went into the classrooms, and many of these people had never seen a Jew before in their lives.
You mentioned earlier that on Yom Kippur that your minister wrote a letter to the Jewish congregation apologizing for persecution. First, if you want to discuss how that made you feel, and the step that making that step does, and maybe discuss what could happen if more religious leaders, regardless of religion, were to acknowledge things like that and then to ask forgiveness for such behavior.
I don't know much about persecution from other religions. I know that Jews persecute each other within their own different, denominations, because there are, like anything else, fundamentalists who I think misinterpret the message of love that's in the various religious texts. But when Yom Kippur is our Day of Atonement, where Rosh Hashanah is the start of a new year, and we look back between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we look back over the year and see the things that I don't personally believe in the concept of sin, but it's what we did that we wish we hadn't done. Things that, we transgressed. Things where, we're sorry. Our intention is to forgive and to ask for forgiveness. And during our service, Rabbi Miriam read a letter from Reverend Janet, and it just makes me feel so emotional, where she apologized on behalf of the Christian people for all of the persecution that had been done to Jews in the name of Christianity. And you can see how it made me feel. It touched me. I am not of your belief. I am not a Christian, but I do believe there was a very wise and loving man named Jesus. And based on what I have heard and know, that he would not have sanctioned any kind of cruelty to anyone in his own name. So that's my personal belief. If I offended anybody, I'm sorry, but I have a great deal of fondness for Jesus. I'm a personal growth mental health professional, and one of the things that I share with my clients is a meditation that brings their spiritual beliefs into this meditation, and I have had Jesus in my office quite often. And I see the love that my clients feel when they bring Jesus into that meditation, and I feel it too. And I think that if we could see the love in each belief, because I think that's what religion is for us to connect with a divine, loving, higher being, that there would not be these kinds of discord, because we're all getting to the same place. We're just having just a little bit different way that we do it. So I'm very touched by what Reverend Janet wrote. I'm very grateful, very grateful.
I think that's good, unless you had anything else to say.
Oh, I could go on for years. You better turn it off right now.